So this is our first stream that we're going to sample turbidity today with. So this is what we call a primary stream. So this is a stream that basically is the first one to kind of gather that rainwater that falls on the surface and runs off into a river. So upstream of us is a neighborhood in this case. So this is going to bring in some pollutants and some other things, but this is a pretty healthy ecosystem, and that neighborhood is about probably a quarter of a mile upstream from here. So a lot of those pollutants and stuff like that probably got absorbed by the trees, but we can examine that later on when we test out for our suspended solids as well. So, but we're going to look at our stream now. This stream has lots of life. There's lots of stuff going on, partly because it is exposed. We don't have a huge tree canopy above us, but also we have lots of just living things. So this stream has lots of algae. It's got lots of areas for salamanders and macroinvertebrates to live in. So it's not necessarily the cleanest stream right now, just because it probably has a little bit more biotic turbidity, so algae and things like that. It did rain this past Friday, so it's Wednesday today, so it's been a few days, so hopefully some of that sediment has kind of settled down, and so we won't have too terribly mucky water. But let's test that out. Let's see what our turbidity is. So I've got my jar with my Secchi disc at the bottom. So remember, we're just going to fill it up right around here, and we're going to fill it up and see what our turbidity is. So here we go. So I definitely want to not gather downstream. I want to gather my water upstream. So I'm just going to lower my jar, fill in as much water as possible, trying to get to that line there. So just need to go a little bit deeper down. There we go. This is a little shallower of a creek, so it might take a little bit more sampling. There we go. That's roughly what we need. So I'm just going to pour a little bit out. Now, if you get some sticks and some stuff like that, that's okay. Keep them. Keep that muck and those sticks, because we'll definitely weigh it out. Now you can see that water is pretty clear. So that's a really good sign that this stream is healthy and that we aren't seeing lots of pollution. So, but we'll dry it out and take that total suspended solid test later on and double check. So this is our first stream sample here. So now we're at the secondary stream. So that first little creek that we sampled at actually flows into the secondary creek. And so this is a creek that will eventually make its way to the Yadkin River, which is our third body of water that we'll sample today. So this creek here is a much larger creek, but it's still got a pretty steady flow. You can see some ripples in the back. You can see that's flowing behind me. So it's got some flow to it, but at the same time, there's still some algae because it's open. There's not too much of a canopy here, and we've still got some floating solids here because we've probably got some sediment and silt coming down from that primary stream, so, and other primary streams. Just because secondary streams, as primary streams flow into those secondary streams, they get wider and wider, and eventually will make its way to an actual river or a tertiary stream. So, and it just keeps on going and growing and growing. Until eventually it makes its way to the ocean. So now we've got our sampling bin here. We've got our Secchi disc, so it's stuck to the bottom here. So now we're going to fill up our bin, and this will be our secondary stream. So here we go. So this is a shallower area, but you always want to make sure that you are sampling upstream of where you're standing. Just because as I move around, I might kick up some solids and stuff like that and give kind of a different sample than what we want. There we go. So we're getting some algae, some guck in this one. Not a lot of sediment yet, but you know, once we do the dried solids, we'll kind of see how much sediment we have as well. So that's our secondary stream. Now let's go sample the Yadkin River, that tertiary body of water. Hi everybody, so welcome. We're at the Yadkin River. Now the Yadkin River flows into the Pee Dee River further south in North Carolina, and the Yadkin Pee Dee River Basin is the second largest river basin in North Carolina. It's only dwarfed by the Cape Fear River Basin, just a little east from here. Now is a really large river, so all those small creeks, including the small creek that we just sampled in, will flow into the Yadkin River here. So this is a very large river, so now we're going to test the turbidity here on the Yadkin River. Now, I do have to say that it rained over the weekend, so we're going to expect some more suspended solids in our water, but it should be relatively clear. So it's also winter time here, so we're not going to worry about the algae and some of the other particulates that might also cloud up and give us a higher than usual turbidity reading. So let's get to sampling. So now we're going to sample the Yadkin River here. Now I've got a nice boat ramp here, and so the goal of this boat ramp is we're just going to plunge our sampling bucket in here and pull out a water sample. Now sometimes if it doesn't want to pull up right away, you'll have to kind of dip down and grab that, pour a little bit out. But now we've got our water sample, and you can see it's relatively clear, but there's some opaqueness. So we'll compare this over to our creek samples, and we'll take a look at it and see if we can pull any suspended solids out of this water.